In today's video, we'll be painting up a human fighter from the Pathfinder Battles WizKids line. Okay, so starting off with this miniature, we're going to start off with some burnt flesh to be painting all of his flesh. So obviously we want to get nice thin coats over all the flesh. And the good thing about these WizKids models is they're already pre-primed, so we don't have to worry about any priming stages. We can go straight on to starting with the paint. So I have thinned the paint down with just a little bit of water, just so I can get a smoother consistency and we can get it into all those cracks and delicate areas that you can see with the detail. And then what I do is I wait for it to dry, and then I come in with a second layer of paint just to give that smooth overall effect, I should say, and leave out a lot of brush strokes by doing two thin coats. So now we have his skin all painted up. What we're going to be doing now is using some ivory. And with the ivory, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to paint in his eyes. So you can see I've got a very fine tip brush here, and I'm just going in and just lightly covering over the eyes to get where it was. Now, it won't be perfect, or at least for me, it won't be perfect. I'm still struggling a lot with the getting the eyes correct and getting the right sort of technique down. So the technique I use at the moment is I just go over the eye socketed area, and then I come back in with the original skin color to just cover up those eyes to make them look more natural again. Okay, so now we have the eye sockets done. We're going to be now coming in with some black, and we're going to be doing the pupil of the eye, which is always the hardest and scariest bit, especially for me. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to practice a little bit with a very fine tip brush here to get it, as in the past, and sometimes I switch between using a brush, a very fine tip brush, and using a pin of some sort, either like a drawing pin or just a sewing needle, something like that already has a fine tip brush, and dipping it into some black paint and dabbing it on. But I want to try get a little bit more focus in with the brush, and I hope it's working, but don't be afraid to take a few attempts at it. I know I definitely took a couple attempts to get the eyes correct. Okay, so now we've completed the eyes. What we're going to be doing now is using our black again, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting our guy's hair black as well. I'm going with straight black so I can highlight up if I want to get those raised areas, and this is basically the good base starting point, as well as it's a nice dark color to stick out on the whole model itself. Okay, so now with his hair complete, what we're going to be doing now is moving on with some Avarlund Sunset. Now, I'm going to be using this here to be painting up his pauldron that he has here, his nice big sort of flashy pauldron he's got on him, as well as his braces as well that he's wearing. So we want to make sure we get a good coverage with that. And the good thing about these Citadel paints is they actually cover pretty well and pretty quickly, especially like the Avarlund Sunset, which is a base paint. So this is great for what we're doing here in this step. And just remember to avoid doing the areas we've already painted, especially around that face, since we've just gotten all those eyes and everything done as well. Okay, so now we have those pieces of armor completed. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some cavalry brown. And we'll be using cavalry brown to be doing the bottom part of his armored sort of skirt area that he's got just down here. So we want to be covering this whole area in the cavalry brown, and this sort of reddish brown is going to be a nice difference in color from everything else that we've got in here. It's going to really stand out on the miniature as a good sort of focal point between all these different colors that we're going to have going on this miniature as well. Okay, so now we've done with that part, we're going to be now moving on with some leather brown, and we'll be using leather brown to be painting up his leg, basically his boots that he's got here, but I'm not going to be covering the entirety of the thing. We're going to be leaving his very bottom bit, which is his shoes, basically. We're going to be leaving them alone for us now. We're going to be painting them in a different color, but for now, we want to be giving these a nice, good coat of leather brown, and really pay attention to the areas in between where these little straps are as well. It can be quite hard to get a little bit of, easy, I should say, to miss a bit of paint in there, so don't forget those as well. Okay, so now with his boots done, what we're going to be doing now is moving on with some uniform grey. And the uniform grey, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting this part on his chest here, sort of like a belt area. I'm not exactly quite sure what to call it, but this nice bit of belt armor he's got here, we want to be aiming for the whole background of it to be in the uniform grey, because he has a lot of straps and leather parts over top of it, but we want that nice base color on there as well. So being a little bit careful to get it all over the skin and stuff. But remember, we're in the base coating stage, so it's okay to go back and touch up as we need. Okay, so now with that complete, what we're going to be doing is we're going to move on with some khaki here, and we're going to be using khaki to be painting up all of his belts and stuff he has here, holding his pauldron to his chest piece there. So we want to make sure we come in with a very fine tip brush to get just the edges of that straps and leather belts across there. Now, remember, just take your time, being careful, and because we're still in the base coating stage, it's okay to mess up a little bit and come back in with our original paints to tidy up. So now we have all of the straps painted up. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some charred brown, which is a nice dark, very dark brown, and we're going to be using this to be painting up the main sort of strap and scabbard he has here on his chest. So we want to be giving that a nice dark color, and it's going to really pop out against all those light colors that we've just placed on top as well, so we can see all those bits of detail. As well as that, we also want to be picking out all the little leather straps that are holding his boot armor up as well. So being careful again to just do the exact same thing that we did when we were doing our leather straps just before. Okay, so now we've completed that. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some angel green, and we'll be using angel green to be painting up the cape that he has here on his back. I haven't shown you too much of the back of the miniature, but you can see he's got this nice green flowing cape, I guess, or skirt, or whatever you want to call this part here. So we want to go with the nice angel green here, and it's going to really pop out because it's a lot different from all the other colors we've got on there. So we want that nice, good eye-catching moment when you're turning your miniature around, and the angel green is going to be good for this. So remember, again, we want to go for 2 thin layers to get that nice smooth look. Okay, so now with this cape complete, we're going to move on with some of the metal now. So using gun metal, what we're going to be doing, of course, is just coating all of our areas we want in metallic. So this is, of course, our swords. He also has a little tankard or a cup that he drinks out of, I'm guessing, on him as well. So we want to make sure we get that. As well as I've left out just one little part of his bracer there as well. I'm going to be doing that in metal too, to give a little bit of difference in color. I didn't want to have all of the upper part yellow, so giving it that extra little bit of interest. And just there, as you can see, there's where the little cup that he uses is as well, so don't forget about those. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to coming in with some tinny tin now, which is another metallic color, and we're going to be using this to be painting up the handles of our weapons to give that nice bit of difference in color. Tinny tin is quite a dark color as well, so it's going to help separate more of these areas on here as well. And our miniature, give it a little bit different look. And as well as that, I'm also going to be dotting on all these little studded parts of the armor it has on it, or a nice sort of design that this miniature has on it with all these little bits and indentations. So I'm going to be doing those as well in the tinny tin color, which is going to really give it a lot of extra detail on there. So just going through and just dotting them on very carefully. Okay, now with all that completed, what we're going to be doing now is coming back in with some black, and we're going to be using this black to be painting up the very bottom of our miniature's feet here with the boots, the bits that I told you to leave out a little bit later, because I wanted the boots to just stand out a little bit than just being straight brown. So giving that black is going to give that nice separation and make it look like he has leather armor wrapped around his shoes. Okay, so now we have his base coating complete. What we're going to be doing now is coming in with some flesh wash, and we're going to be using this, of course, over all of our miniatures flesh. So making sure we've got a nice amount on our brush, just keeping a little bit of control on here because we don't want it running wild and going over all the other areas we're painted, because we're going to be saving those for other washes and give off separate looking effects, so it looks a lot more realistic than placing one wash everywhere. So just being careful to apply it everywhere where the skin is. Okay, so once that wash is completely dry, what we're going to do now is come in with some agrex earthshade. Now, the agrex earthshade, I'm going to be washing pretty much over the entirety of the rest of the miniature that we have here, except for any areas where we have the major amount of metallic. So I'm using it here on the pauldron, but those little dots on there aren't most of the miniature, so I'm not worrying too much about that. But the main parts of the metallics, of course, is like the sword, a little tank that he has on him, and stuff like that. So everything else we want to pretty much wash. So that's the cape, the boots, the bottom part of the skirt there, just a little bit of armor. We want to get everywhere with the agrex earthshade. Okay, so once that agrex earthshade wash has been completely dry, we're now going to come in with some vallejo earth texture. And I'm going to be placing this here on the base with this little applicator tool. Just trying to get it nice and smooth and evenly. You can use a popsicle stick or anything you've got here that has a fine point. I would avoid using a brush with this, as it can damage the brush quite quickly. But we just want here because we want a little bit of texture on the base as well. Okay, so once that texture is completely dry, we're going to move on with some other steps, and we're going to be doing some highlighting. So coming in with cavalry brown and ivory. Now, what we're going to be doing is just picking out the raised parts here. So this miniature has a nice trim on it here with this little bit of skirt, so we want to pick out that and give it a nice highlighted look. So it's going to be eye-catching. Your eye's going to draw straight to it, really popping out on the miniature. And then once we have that picked out, what we're doing is doing the exact same thing with angel green and ivory. A lot of the highlighting things I'll be adding ivory to, which is just an off-white, and it's just going to highlight everything up nicely and give it that slightly lighter tone. So it's just adding a tiny drop to our paint that we already have here to highlight it up, so we can add in all these nice highlights like where the sun would naturally hit. You can see here it's got nice easy spots to highlight on this miniature where we've got these nice raised bumps. So it's a nice good easy guide for these types of things. Okay, and then with the cape done, what we're also going to be doing is coming in with some chainmail silver, and we want to be highlighting our metallic here. So everywhere we've got the metallics, we want to be highlighting that too. I also forgot to mention I forgot about the footage where I added a nuln oil, of course, to our metallic areas. So everywhere, like the sword and the little tank that he has on him and everything like that. So just highlighting those spots up there with the chainmail. And with that, those are all our highlights. Now I have added a couple more highlights as well that I felt were necessary, sort of like the ones on the shoulder pads and stuff too. So the highlights are totally up to you. I just showed you a few examples of what you can do. But now I'm moving on to some static grasses I've shown you here and some tufts, and I'm not quite sure exactly what I'm going to do yet. So stick around for the final result to see what it's like. And with all that, we've finally completed our human fighter from the Pathfinder Battles wizkids line. And as you can see, by just having some few simple colors and adding on some highlights, we've got a nice standout piece here on a miniature. By just varying up a few colors there, we can draw the eye to different parts of the miniature and really make an exciting piece to stand out on the table as you're playing your game. So I hope this has been helpful, whether you want to follow along and paint these things or you just enjoy watching me paint up some cool miniatures. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.